You know how most epic stories end, right? The hero gets to their goal, they win the day, and we close the book and think, well, that's the end. But what if it wasn't? What if that was just the beginning of another story? Today we're diving into the incredible tale that one of literature's greatest authors decided to tell after everyone thought the journey was already over. So let's start with that question right there. Seriously, think about it. The hero triumphs, but what about the family they left back home? What happens to their world after the adventure is done? It's a question most stories just ignore. But John Bunyan? He decided to answer it. And this right here is what makes his work so unbelievably cool. After he wrote the legendary The Pilgrim's Progress, he actually went back to that world. Why? To tell the story of Christiana, the wife of his original hero, Christian. He gave us a part 2, a sequel that honestly changes how you see the entire journey. Okay, so let's get into it. The second part is all about Christiana Wynne. And she is not some side note to her husband's story. Oh no. She becomes the hero of her very own epic pilgrimage. And her journey, you'll see, is in so many ways deeper and even more powerful than the one we thought we knew. And this is where you see a huge shift in Bunyan's entire vision. See, part 1 was this intense, lonely struggle. It was all about one man's quest. But part 2 just blows that wide open. Suddenly, the path to salvation isn't a solo mission anymore. It's a community project. It's about family, about supporting each other, and this really radical idea that this path is for everyone, women and kids included. It's a journey you walk together. So how does this journey actually play out? Well, Christiana doesn't go it alone. She takes her kids, and her friend Mercy comes along too. Right from the start, they get this amazing guardian to help them, and together, they don't just face down their enemies, they totally defeat them, clearing the path for anyone else who might come after. And speaking of allies, let's talk about a key player. Everybody meet Greatheart. This guy is a brand new character in part 2, and I'm telling you, he's a total game changer. He's way more than just a guide. He's like this divinely sent bodyguard. He's armed, he's ready to fight, and he basically represents the active, powerful protection that God offers to the faithful. His presence changes everything. But, of course, the road is still full of bumps. One of Christiana's sons, Matthew, he makes a mistake and gets terribly sick. It's a really strong symbol for the consequences of sin. But then help shows up, a doctor named Skill who represents repentance. And you start to see a theme here. They don't just travel, they rescue people along the way, like Feeblemind, and they gather more friends. This whole journey is about lifting each other up. And that brings us to the big bad of the story, Giant Despair. This guy lives in Doubting Castle, and he is the perfect symbol for that crushing hopelessness that can just completely wreck your spiritual journey. In the first book, our hero Christian barely gets away from him, but in part 2, things go down very, very differently. This right here is where the sequel just shines. Christiana, Greatheart, and their crew, they don't just escape Giant Despair. No way. They march right up to Doubting Castle and they fight him. They completely defeat him, tear his fortress to the ground, and free every single prisoner inside. They don't just survive despair, they conquer it. For everyone. It's an incredible shift from just personal survival to liberating the whole community. But, this whole pilgrimage thing wasn't Bunyan's only epic allegory. In his other masterpiece, The Holy War, he took this whole idea of conflict and just scaled it way, way up. He imagined the human soul itself as a literal city under siege. It's a massive spiritual war on a completely different level. So get this, in the Holy War, the human soul is a city called Mansoul. The whole story is a full-on military campaign between God, who's called Shaddai, and Satan, called Diabolus, as they fight for control of the city. The characters are literally parts of our mind, like will and conscience. It's this incredibly ambitious, complex picture of the spiritual war that rages inside every single one of us. And believe it or not, these epic allegories were just the tip of the iceberg. Bunyan was also a super passionate and productive theologian. He wrote dozens of other books and pamphlets. And when you look at them all together, you get this whole library of faith that gives us a much clearer picture of what he truly believed, way beyond just his famous stories. I mean, his range was just incredible. In one book, The Barren Fig Tree, he's arguing that real faith has to lead to good actions. Then in another, of Antichrist, he's giving this fiery warning against corrupt institutions. And then you have something like The Jerusalem Sinner Saved, which offers this beautiful promise that nobody is too far gone for God's grace. He was tackling the biggest questions out there, which really makes you wonder, where did all of this come from? Okay, so to really get John Bunyan, you have to know where he wrote his most famous books. They weren't dreamed up in some comfy study with a fireplace. Nope. They were forged in the fire of a prison cell. In that context, it's everything. 12 years. Just let that number sink in for a second. For more than a decade, John Bunyan was locked up. And for what? For his beliefs. This unbelievable stretch of suffering became the very soil where his incredible imagination and deepest spiritual ideas took root. So why was he arrested? It was for preaching without an official license from the state church. As a nonconformist, he just refused to be silenced. And for that, they threw him in jail. And it was right there, in that cell, that he came up with and wrote the Pilgrim's Progress. His own writings from that time show a guy whose faith wasn't just crushed by all this, it was strengthened by it. And you have to think, when he created the monster giant Despair and his doubting castle, he wasn't just writing fiction. He was writing about the very walls around him and the hopelessness he had to fight off every single day. So, after all this, the sequel, the allegories, the theology, the sacrifice, what's Bunyan's real legacy? I mean, why are we still talking about a preacher from the 1600s today? You know, I think this quote just nails it. It's that perfect mix, deep, heavy theological ideas, told through these unforgettable stories, all written in a way that regular people could actually understand. He made that inner, spiritual journey feel so real, so tangible. And that's why his work is still a cornerstone of literature. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. Bunyan gave his world this powerful roadmap for life, and it was filled with giants of despair and valleys of humiliation. It just makes you wonder, what are the maps and metaphors we use for our own lives today? What are our giants? And who is our great heart that helps us get through it all?